Have you ever encountered a situation where people seem resistant and prefer sticking to the old ways? It's a common phenomenon that transcends industries, including the construction space. But have you ever wondered what lies at the core of this resistance? It's the fear of the unknown. As a leader, how can you effectively help your employees manage this fear? In this enlightening episode of Thriving in Construction, the podcast, we have the privilege of hosting my friend, Mr. Chris Collie, an esteemed expert in the field. With his extensive experience as an HR and business consultant, Chris specializes in corporate training, executive coaching, and life coaching. Join us as we delve into the importance of planning and anticipating resistance to change. We'll also explore crucial topics such as leadership development, diversity, and inclusion in the workplace, and discover key tools that can be implemented to enhance our work effectiveness. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm welcome to our guest for today, Mr. Chris Collie. Chris Collie, how are you?
Delightful.
Thank you so much for being here in Thriving in Construction, the podcast. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for being a friend. Thank you for being an inspiration to me and to so many people that you teach, that you help thrive in their own businesses. Thank you for being a man of God. Thank you for being an amazing friend, an amazing father, an amazing husband. I mean, you're really beyond amazing. So thank you so much for being here and coming to share your experience. For me, this is very informal because we know each other so much. We've worked together. You've helped our company so much with culture and people. And obviously, that's a never-ending process, right? Because we people change constantly. So I have no words to thank you and to be grateful for the amazing impact that you have created in my life, in Emilio's life, and in our company. Thank you so much.
It is absolutely my pleasure. You know, what a lot of people don't know is that you're also my mentor, my coach. I'm not sure if my wife would agree that I'm an amazing husband, but thank you anyway. Well, I look forward to chatting with you.
Yes. So, Chris, if we weren't to prepare our listeners to improve in how they deal with the issue of talent or the important aspect that talent has in their companies, what three things would you tell them that in order to have the people that can support them, they need to do? What are the decisions that they have to make? What are the priorities? What are the pillars that a great talent and culture is built on? And now let's remember, this is for any size company, whether small, medium, or large. What are three pillars that people need to consider in order to have that? Maybe they cannot afford it today, but what are the three? What's the focus? They need to focus.
That's a brilliant question. I think the first piece that companies need to focus on is, do they have the right culture in place? Do they have a set of mission and vision and values that can support talent? Because if you hire people into your company and you don't have a core set of values within your company that's clearly defined, a set of mission, a mission about where a company wants to go that's clearly defined, then you put talent in that organization, they're not going to succeed. And so the real foundation where the work is not sexy, but to define a mission, vision, and values becomes important. When you have that, then I can recruit people who match those mission, vision, and values that a company is looking for. If I don't have that, I'm recruiting blindly. And it's my mission, vision, and values that's going to determine my work environment, what's important in our company. It's going to drive the benefits we provide because it's consistent with our values. So a good example of that, for example, would be if one of our core values is family. What does that really mean? Do I hire some people in our company who understand the concept and spirit of working together? And then do I provide some benefits within my company that support that? Do I do company picnic? Because that's part of our core values and it supports that. So it really starts with our mission, vision, and values and really defining that and doing the hard work that's required in doing that. And the second piece of that is, as you define that, understand that if there are players within your company today that doesn't support that, what do you do? What do you do with those people? And that becomes a bigger question, because if I put talented people in an organization that is not ready for them, then they will leave and go elsewhere. Your B and C players will hang in there anyway, because somebody else will take a C player. But your A players and your solid B players will not be happy in that environment.
So the pillars are?
Your core mission, vision, and values need to be aligned with that. And really, from a leadership perspective, the leaders must live and support that. And it's sometimes very easy to kind of forget that because the person is very competent in what they do.
And that's important. So a lot of times I get it, how important, and I think many people that could be listening to us, they know that. And they're going to say, well, you know what, I have my mission and my vision and my values defined. They're in my website. I don't have that culture. I don't have, I'm working more than I would have, that I would like to. The problems seem to be coming to me. I'm having this issue, this other issue. How come it's not working? Mm-hmm. How do you translate mission, vision, values from the website to the practical application of them that is actually lived, that people that show up in your organization can actually say, you know what, this company, I can see that the values, the missions, and the visions are lived.
Got it. And that's very true. I would say, Patricia, that maybe 90% of companies, what they've outlined as the mission, vision, and values doesn't exist in real life. There's a favorite airline of mine who have some wonderful stuff about service in their corporate office. But when you travel on the airline, it's a much different experience, a huge disconnect. So let's say that one of your core values is self-sufficiency, for example, being innovative, problem solver. And as a leader, people come into you and say, well, Patricia, how do I solve this problem? If you become the knight in shining armor and continue to provide the answer, then you're going counterproductive to one of your core values, which is I need you to be innovative and creative. So what I would say to that leader is go back and then say, Chris, what do you think we should do? Rather than providing the answer. One thing that I believe in strongly is that I share with leaders that as you grow your company, the genius is not to be able to give all the right answers. The genius is to be able to ask the right questions. And here's the kicker, Patricia. Asking the right questions even without knowing what the right answer is. Yeah. That is the genius of a leader. So very often we feel like I know the answer intellectually. It's much faster for me to give the right answer rather than saying to that person, what do you think we should do? And so you go counter your culture and one of your core values about being innovative because you're not allowing them to think through it and be innovative and creative. So one of the is to look at it and say, how do I communicate daily? And how do I lead my organization daily to become consistent with that?
That's true. Now, and that's a good example. So if you want to give an advice to someone listening that has a company, what do you, once they define the values, the mission, the vision, what could they do on a consistent basis that would make one thing that they could do on a consistent basis? How do they know how to translate that? Mm-hmm. You have an example with that, but let's say that the value of the people integrity. Mm-hmm. People use that value a lot. How do you ingrain that? How do you hire people, making sure that integrity is part of their core value, not yours? Mm-hmm. What would you do in the hiring process differently to make sure that the value comes in with a person already?
Yeah, that's a great question, and one of my favorite integrity questions that I ask in interviews, I would pose the question like this. I would say, Patricia, when is the last time that you had to make a tough decision that went against, or you're asked to make a decision that went against your core value? Tell me about that. Tell me about a time when your integrity was challenged. And the person may say, well, Patricia, do you mean my personal life or my professional life? I said, we pick one. Because how they respond to that question will tell me to what degree they're willing to take a step or take a stand in following their core values on the level of integrity. So I'd go back to them and ask, well, tell me about a time when your integrity was in question or you had a challenge that was challenged.
A lot of times, people have that definition, there's one that I like, that integrity is doing the right thing when nobody's looking.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that speaks to, am I taking something that is not mine? Mm-hmm. Am I working the hours that I need? Am I delivering the outcomes that I'm supposed to be delivering?
Absolutely.
Am I doing stuff behind the person so that if they see me, am I using a computer to do my personal stuff? Mm-hmm. That's integrity.
Absolutely. And then also you want to begin to understand from them, how do they view other people who are not living up to a sense of integrity and the spirit of integrity. So one question I would ask is, tell me about a time when you saw somebody doing something that did not speak to integrity. What happened? Because what I want to hear from them is, did you do something about it? Or did you let it slide? Because if they let it slide, they did nothing about it, that's what they're going to do in my organization. If they said I spoke about it, I hear some actions that I took, then it tells me something about that person. So I would say, tell me about a time, again, you pick wherever, where something happened that you thought was not a level of integrity that you thought should have occurred, or honesty that should have occurred, and then have them tell me what it is and how they responded to it.
Absolutely. And one thing that comes to mind that is very present when you talk about integrity, that topic of silent quitting that is very predominant nowadays. Yes. After the pandemic, people decide, change their values. A lot of people have now the flexibility to work from home, but when you are being paid to do something and nobody's looking, are you doing another job for the same amount of time and money that you're charging in the same time frame? Are you already also doing another thing on that time frame? Is that integrity?
Absolutely not. And we can use technology to minimize some of that. But it comes back to what you said earlier, Patricia, is how do I get them in the door where that is something that they would not even think about doing? And that is where it really starts. And then the second part to that is, as an organization, when we make a mistake and when we screw up and we hire a person that's not the right fit, what do we do at that point? Yeah. So we are going to make mistakes. We shouldn't beat up on ourselves for that. But if a higher person realizes that they are not fully aligned with that value, how quickly you respond to that becomes critical. The longer you allow that to delay, causes for your company tremendous amount of headache and bring in a level of toxicity.
A lot of times we don't do things because of fear.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
When we let fear be the guide of our life, it doesn't necessarily allow us to make the right decisions. Right? For example, if I say that I have integrity, you're absolutely right. If as an employer I realize this person is not aligned and I know, I'm convinced of that, it's better to do this in a direct way as fast as possible instead of creating a plan, a strategy, let me do it when it's convenient for me.
Yes.
Because there's no integrity there.
No, and
it's all about the truth.
It is. It's easy for me to sit here and say that. And when I talk to clients very often, they'll say, Chris, that's my top salesperson. They're my top business development person, and I know they suck. I know they should not be part of my team. They're like a cancer within my organization. But Chris, they're my top salesperson. How can I let that person go? And I'm also a business person, so I fully understand that you have to run your business at the same time. You have to walk and chew gum at the same time. So my advice to them would be, create a plan or a strategy for exiting that person. And it could be that you quietly go back and look to recruit or fill that position, or train up some people within the organization to take that role on. But you should not have no plan whatsoever. The plan should be, what do I need to do to replace this talent that I'm going to lose in my organization so that I can continue to run my company? Because if you don't do that, other people looking on will see that and say, well, if you allow that to happen, then why am I going to bust my chops for you?
The cancer goes from stage 1 to stage 4 in weeks.
Yes.
But I'll tell you, Chris, and obviously this is out of script, but I'm very grateful for the conversation we're having. I think it's totally guided. Memories coming to flashbacks. I'm having flashbacks from the moment you came here, you stepped and you sat on that exact same chair.
That's true.
And you asked me, I remember when I met you with Goldman Sachs, hashtag Goldman Sachs, a beautiful program. It gave me the awareness of stepping into a 30,000 foot elevation where I was just so focused on my business and I had no clue and really leading the business based on what I had already learned, even from other companies. And stepping outside of the business, which I didn't think I had the time to make for that commitment of 3 months, I was able to do it, and then I learned a lot. And one thing I learned that completely changed my life. It is crucial for a business to have the right people and the right culture. And without people in construction, we can't do anything. You put the right material on time, on a job site, and it won't get done. You need people. And it also gave me the awareness that in our industry, we really have not focused on people, I think, the way we deserve to. And times for change are here. I also believed that we, especially in the field, have treated people probably, as second-class citizens, the people in the field.
Yes.
And the industry is feeling it. And I know that because, maybe because I'm a woman, when I would go to the job site, for me, we're all one. I don't care if you're a laborer or if you're the top CEO. I don't care. That's how I see people. We're all in this together.
Yes.
I remember approaching you after the program ended. We met here. You came here, and I said, I want to change. I want to change here. And I already had a feeling on what a bad culture or the wrong culture looks like, without putting any adjectives. And the level of stress we had, the level of outcomes and results, and that required a decision from me. I remember you telling me that was very difficult. And you put it in these words, and I don't forget. You said 70% of the companies that decide to change culture in the midst, of the day-to-day business fail.
Yes.
Is that still the number?
Absolutely. And I would even say that perhaps it's even greater today. A good thing when I think about change in an organization, when I travel to the Caribbean, or Jamaica, which is the capital of the world. We all know that, for sure.
I disagree with that. Dominicans disagree that we're from the Caribbean.
But the Caribbean generally. So when I travel to the Caribbean, we drive on the left side of the road. And so when I go to Jamaica, I have to really be conscious and aware of the side of the road, which side I'm driving on. Not because I tend to drive on the right side, not because I'm stupid, although my wife would perhaps disagree with that. Not because I want to have a death wish, but because of a habit of driving on the right side. And so I have the consciously aware on the left side. Very often in organizations, we want to make a change. We call a meeting, we send a memo. As of today, we're now going to drive on the left side of the road. And employees just naturally want to drive on the right side because that's the side they've been driving on all this time. And as an owner, business owner, or leader, we say, but how stupid can an employee be? I sent a memo out saying we should drive on the left. We're going to drive on the right. And you're still driving on the wrong side. Did they not read the memo? Are they stupid? Did they not like change? No, it's none of those.
It's a habit.
It's a habit. And so from leadership, we have to then be cognizant of that and then say, how do I help them to change a new set of habits within the organization, a new way of doing things or a different way of doing things? And there's a whole strategy for doing that. But why companies fail is they realize that the employee doesn't have a death wish. The employee is not stupid. It's just that we know as leaders have to figure out, how do I help them to understand this new reality or different reality that we have to live in within our company.
Is it realistic? I agree. And I tell you, as leaders, we're in so many places at the same time that I don't think we have the perspective. We probably don't want to, it almost feels like babysitting, right? And we created the culture that we have.
Yes.
Right? And it requires us to change, right? And that at the same time. And many times that's painful too. So you're not willing to do the emotional work. To me, it's all about emotional work and psychology.
Yes.
My question is, you are absolutely right. And as the leader, you also have to get a company still going. You know, in the process of change, you can change that quickly, but maybe not.
Yeah.
And in that process of change, is it realistic to expect, if you were to do everything that you become the best coach instantly, which is not necessarily true.
Right.
Is it realistic to expect that that everyone in your company is going to decide to change a bad habit that before was accepted but today is no longer?
Right.
Is it expected that how much of the people really, if everything else is perfect, how much of the people really embrace that change and make it and own it?
And that's good. But I think part of responding to that question is understanding this, that don't expect 100% of your employees to sign on. Don't expect 100% of your employees to sign on at the same rate that everybody's signing on. Some may sign on within a day, some may sign on a week, a month, even a year. The question for the leader is, what's my tolerance level? There are some changes that need to happen right now. Particularly in today's world, organizations need to move like a speedboat, not like the Titanic. So the question is, I need to make a move. How fast do I need to make that move? The second thing I'll say, Patricia, is very often change is seen as top-down. Well, let's say that we see that we need to make a strategic change in our business or culture in the next 6-12 months. We need to move to a different market, different group. Rather than having it come from us, we can go to our team or those involved in stakeholders and say, here's what I'm thinking may happen. Do you think that we can sustain our business in this marketplace? What do you think? And get them involved in that discussion, get them involved in that process. So it's no longer me owning that anymore. It's us together collaboratively identifying that there needs to be a change within the organization and collaboratively and collectively figuring how we might do that. Very often it's, Chris decided we're going to change. Chris decided we're going to go to a different market. Chris decided we're going to do things differently. It is Chris. Rather than we haven't made a decision, let's go into it. The third piece of that, Patricia, would be
that I have to stop
yes.
there because I keep that. I want to add, and I want to really, you're absolutely right on. And I also believe what we do, sometimes, we do an organizational structure, and we also only rely on the leadership to drive the change. And we stop communicating with everyone else and people in the bottom, like you said, the ones that are doing the grind.
Yes.
And I believe, to me, it's not that I haven't heard this, you said this before, but I believe, I'm like, oh my gosh, how did I not? I forgot that. And you're right. There's so much power into bringing everyone else, because
yes.
they might be the first people suffering from a piece of the culture that is not working, a cancer that is coming up and you're not aware of, and you're relying on a couple of people to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And it's the power of collaborative leadership and bottom-up leadership. And then the other piece I'd share would be, we sometimes set ourselves up as being perfect. But we can say to our team, look, we're going to go to a different market and we're going to screw up. we're going to make some mistakes. We're going to change our process. We're going to change our technology from using this software to this process software. And we are going to make some mistakes. We are going to screw up. In that moment, what you've done is released the pressure and the tension from the team and give them license to say, you know what, we're going to make some mistakes. I don't have to be perfect in this transition. And so it makes that whole change process much more digestible and makes it much more palatable that people can take it on in a way that you're not asking me to be perfect in this transition, because it never is. But setting that up is really important in doing now.
And opening the stage for people to give ideas.
Absolutely.
And also own the responsibilities
Yes.
of executing it.
Yes.
But I agree with you. Once it is not a perfect process, right? Because the one thing that I can tell you is, you can't have a script on how you're going to do it and expect that it's going to work the same way in every organization, because organizations have life.
Yes.
You know, a company is like I don't want to say a child, but in a way, it has the life it mimics the life of a human.
Yes.
It has a birth, and you're a toddler, and you're a teenager, and you're an adult, and you can be institutionalized.
Absolutely. And I think as leaders, sometimes we have to humanize ourselves in a way, and humanize our organization. And I think one thing you've talked about that resonate with me a lot is making construction human, and really making leadership human. You know, it comes from even having a crucial conversation where I need to have a crucial conversation with a team member, and I don't have it because I'm fearful I'm going to screw this up. And what I share with people is, it's okay to say, you know, Patricia, I need to have this conversation with you. It doesn't come easy. In fact, I may just mess up the whole conversation. But you're so important to me, and I care about you so much, that I'm willing to be uncomfortable to have this conversation with you. Is that okay? And by being vulnerable and open in that conversation gives you a license to do that.
And people's defense mechanism
goes down. And so you can have that conversation. And same thing for leadership, and changing leadership and culture within your team. They say, we're going to make some mistakes. Absolutely. We're going to screw up. Absolutely. We're going to get things wrong. Absolutely. But we're in this together, providing that you took a collaborative approach.
I have to tell you, Chris, that for me, after the biggest blessings I've received as a person, in terms of my transformation from a transactional to maybe a transcendental, and I'm not saying that I'm there, but I firmly believe we are in Earth University, learning what we need to learn and challenge in the way we need to be challenged, so that our souls can be transformed.
Great.
So that when we die, we're not at the same place when we got landed here. That's how I feel in my own life. I see because the emotions play a huge role on how do you do all this.
Yes.
If I tell you that I'm the same person when you sat down here than today, I am lying.
You're very different.
I am 100% different. I could not have these crucial conversations. I remember when I had to have a crucial conversation with somebody, I had to write it down. I would call and I say, how do I say it? Because emotionally, I couldn't do it.
Right.
I was so attached emotionally. And this is when things could get screwed up. Because then it's not you or the person that is having a conversation. It's their emotions and your emotions, your history. Whatever happened to you when you were little, that is showing up. And at that point, the company becomes very unproductive.
Absolutely.
You said something about culture. You said about questions. There's a book regarding the quality of your life. It's related to the quality of the questions you ask.
Absolutely.
What can you say about that?
If we understand that our capacity for having the right answers is finite, there's just so much body of knowledge that we can have that's finite. But if you think about the quality of the questions we can ask, it's infinite. And it is in the questions that we ask that gives us data that we need that becomes really powerful in our personal or professional lives. That's really important. And from a leadership perspective, we sometimes come from a culture of, I need to have the right answers. When we were a project manager, when we were the staff accountant, it was important for us to have the right answer. As we become more senior in the organization, it becomes really more important to be able to ask tough questions and even the right questions to begin to figure out what direction I should take. So the power is really in the questions and not so much on the answer. Because again, the body of knowledge you can have, Patricia, is finite. I mean, you can be really, really smart, but it's still finite. Just think about the quality of questions you can ask. That's infinite in terms of what you do. Because you're not anymore tied into, I need to have the right answer to the question I'm going to ask you. And we get married to that concept. But if you divorce yourself from the concept that I need to know the right answer before I ask the question, then it gives us a tremendous amount of liberty and freedom to just really be a leader and lead an organization in a way that's just really cool and sexy.
And what I have also learned, one of the people that I know that has, this process also has made me grow tremendously. A lot of times you ask people a question and they don't tell you the truth, especially if you're the employer, right? And I remember you used to say, well, that you're the top person and people are afraid, right? But how do you create that level of trust? To me, that's crucial for culture. For people to have, they can tell you things that you might not like, but they have the open space to that as long as it's with respect and with certain, of course, boundaries, right? But being able to tell the truth.
Yes.
Because the truth is really what can create the change.
Yeah.
So with questions, right? One of the people I know that I am like, wow, how do they get to tell to the truth? Is Tony Robbins. Especially when he asks you a question in front of, I don't know, thousands of people, and it's people typically speak up to say something, and then he starts asking questions. The guy asks questions even if he knows what is it that you need to do. He doesn't go, because I'm the type of person that I wanted to tell people this is solid,
yes,
fast, but it really doesn't have any meaning unless it comes from the person. It really doesn't have. People don't change until they want to, and so that is extremely powerful. And I used to struggle with having an employee that I knew was not happy. But then you would ask them, are you happy? And they would say yes.
True.
And so I learned to ask more questions. And so now I used to say, what makes you happy? Oh, and then you see the struggle. If you stay with a yes or no, you have an issue.
Absolutely.
What do you think about it?
That's true. I think you said it perfectly, which is the realization for leaders is that it is not always easy for me to have a open conversation with the person that's going to decide if I pay my mortgage or make my car payment or buy my grocery. So that being said, if you understand that, and I get that question a lot, like as I'm in my coaching work, how do I open this conversation up? Because I'm really not very eloquent. I'm really not an extrovert. I'm really not. How do I get my employees to open up in an honest way? And I share these three questions with them. I said, first question you ask, one-on-one. Chris, tell me one thing I can do more of to make you more successful. What's one thing you want me to do more of?
Question.
I would ask them to tell me what's one thing that I need to stop doing. Just stop doing to make you more successful. And I listen. I need to stop blah, blah, blah. Do not defend yourself.
Yeah.
You say, Patricia, thank you for that feedback. Let me go back and look and see what I can do to adjust.
And don't take it against the person.
No. So if you ask those three questions, and those three questions could take you 30 minutes to get an answer. It could take an hour to get an answer. You're really just listening. This isn't an opportunity for you to speak. It's an opportunity for you to listen.
But you know what, Chris?
With intent.
I have to tell you that for you coming to a company as a consultant, you have no emotional connection with that company.
No.
It's very easy for you to ask those questions. Although you're absolutely right, what I would say that will work for me. Because unless you have done that emotional work, I believe if you don't, these are opportunities if it disturbs you, right? If asking the question that you said, oh, stage, don't defend yourself. If you have a need to defend yourself, it's because you're being disturbed.
Right.
If you're being disturbed, there's something that this emotion is telling you.
Yes.
As a leader, you need to get rid of that. How do you get rid of that? That's a different podcast. But it's very important because otherwise you're not reacting with what they call emotional intelligence.
Absolutely.
Emotional intelligence is not staying silence, because silence can also be violence, right? The emotional intelligence is not getting charged and not retaliating or reacting or not even listening or not doing anything about it.
Correct.
Right? So, like I said, I could not be more grateful for this process, because this decision that I made, 4 years ago? It hasn't even been that long, but it seems to be like 20 years.
Seems like a long time.
Because the impact that it has caused in my life has been tremendous.
Yeah.
These people that you attract to your life, that come to your business, that not necessarily forever, you attract because they're teaching you something.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I could not, again, you became a friend, and you will continue to be one. We'll continue to do stuff together. I can't wait to do a series of training regarding talent and culture, how to hire right, how to
Absolutely.
have these crucial conversations. Yes. And I would love to do a role play with you because I've had to do this. Yes. It's been crazy. And the things that people tell you later, sometimes you think you have a type of person, but when this stuff happens, they react in a way that you never would have thought. I would love to be able to have a training so people that I'm sure are going to have questions. How do I do it?
Absolutely.
Because those are the questions I had.
Absolutely. And then that's what's really important. And one last thing I'd share would be, you talk about freedom and how do I free up myself? And part of that is how do I delegate to people in a way that's really powerful, because as a leader, you can't grow your organization if everything comes through to you. And then one conversation we could have later on is, how do I go through that whole delegation process with people? So.
And I'll tell you what I've learned about that too. One thing is easier said than done. Because when you have been doing everything yourself and you started hiring people, there's an identity associated with you and who you are and what are you capable of.
Yes.
Saying that you want to be here does not necessarily mean that you internally believe it.
No.
And that goes to say, when you place someone that has been good at this level, and you want this person to grow and make him a manager, or her, sometimes you might be putting this person in a position of failure because maybe they're not ready skills-wise. Maybe you're not ready to give them mentorship. Or maybe in their own identity, they're not even capable of doing that.
Absolutely.
So identity also plays a role, but at the end of the day, the responsibility of being able to see this is from the leader. Every time.
I see so often, Patricia, where if I use a restaurant as an example, where they have a waiter a server who's just really brilliant, get along well with customers at top way. And so they promote that person to become the restaurant manager, and they fail. And what they did not realize was that those skills that made you a wonderful waiter does not necessarily transform itself into becoming a wonderful leader, because I may not be able to communicate with staff as well as I communicate with guests, and then we don't provide the level of training and development that's needed in doing that. So we don't give them the leadership skills that they need to go to the next level. So it's a combination, but it's a whole new conversation that we need to have.
And maybe we don't even give them the roadmap or the level of expectations.
Absolutely.
You interpret that the person is going to do it the same way you did it. Nobody gave you a roadmap and you figured this out and you became a business owner. But it can be different. I do have one last question for you.
Sure.
It has to do, and it probably is an opening of space for another podcast. You and I can talk forever. It's about diversity and inclusion and equity. Mm-hmm. The topic of diversity, equity, and inclusion. How do you see it in the next 10 years of our lives?
Got it. It's a very powerful question. So when I think about diversity and inclusion, diversity is very different than inclusion. So when I think about diversity, it's not about how many black people do I have, how many women, how many Hispanic, that's math. And we need to be aware of that and making sure that our team meet up to some of those math. Do I have enough of those people within my team? But inclusion is much bigger than that. Inclusion is within that group of people, do they have a level of influence in the organization? That's what inclusion is. So inclusion is I can have a group of people sitting in this boardroom, diverse, but they don't have influence in the policies and the decisions that we make. So diversity and inclusion are two different things, and very often we marry them, not understanding that I can be diverse, but not inclusive. If I look at construction, for example, less than 15% of companies worldwide are owned by women, construction companies. So you can look at that industry and say, is that industry diverse or is it inclusive? I would say either. It's not. Then how do we then bring more women into construction? And on the field, I think the answer is about 15% of women are in construction, even on the ground as workers. How do we create that? And so it has to be a very deliberate approach. How do I find more people that are diverse? So if I need more black people in my company, more Hispanic, more whatever it is in my company, you go after those in very different places. There are different pockets of the population. And then now I bring them into my organization. How do I make them in a position of influence for inclusion? Because you can have a diverse organization, but it's not inclusive. I can have an organization that's diverse because I have some people who are Catholics and Muslims or so on and all that stuff, but they're not necessarily included. And so that is where we have to have a strategy for diversity, which we need to have, because organizations that are diverse are far more successful, because in the conference room, as we look at marketing and business, it's a different market completely and how we talk to those people. On the inclusion side, that becomes from the leadership to determine to what degree of influence do I give the women on my team, or the men, or the black, or the Hispanic, or what are those different groups? What level of influence do they have in my organization? And that is the more difficult part. The easier part is to check off and look at my office and I say, well, I have 2 black people, I have 3 Hispanics, I have this, and the math works well. But it doesn't matter. So it's really around inclusion. Yes, I need to marry both in that.
And I think I go, that's brilliant. That's pretty clear there. And I also go beyond age.
Yes.
Ever since the millennial were, showing up at the workplace as a speaker, I would listen to people complaining about it. They don't work, they don't like to work, blah, blah, blah. And at the end of the day, first of all, I would say, well, those are the same kids we raised. So
that's a good point.
Yeah, look at you. You're the parent. You're complaining about your own kids. Mm-hmm. So you told them that servicing and the environment and this and this and this is important. So check yourself on that, by the way. And the other part is that, there is the value in bringing in people with different thoughts.
Yes.
Different generations.
Yes.
And with that, that's another podcast. I really wanna thank you again. This has been amazing. I can't wait to start creating some stuff with you, surprise our people and our audience with more delivery, more service, more value.
Thank you for having me. It was wonderful. It's a pleasure.
And thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.